Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. It is me once again, screaming into the void of the internet. You know, I was thinking about something in relation to the fact that independent thought as a concept, dies more and more as social media becomes just the go-to thing, And I was thinking about this just mainly due to the fact that it is insane to me just how easily it has been to convince people. Honestly, especially after everyone's favorite year, 2020, just how easy it is to make very stupid decisions. Saw my roommate and she was talking about, her financial issues. And, in the back of my mind, she's been working way longer than me and her finances are terrible. I've only been working a year here, moved up to where I am now. I've been working longer than that, but she said that I have great finances and I have discipline, and I'm like, so you're aware that the problem is the fact that you're buying unnecessary stuff, but you keep buying unnecessary stuff. It's not necessarily just her. It's just due to the fact that there are so many people that see all of these advertisements for all of this bullcrap that you don't need, and they don't only buy it, they start getting on you, shaming you for not doing it. Just say you're a brokey, right? Just say you're a brokey. Because they're going around and they're wearing their wealth. They have their wealth in the form of the material. But most of the time, the material that they have doesn't usually have value. Now, this is not to say that there is no value in material things. One of the big things going around right now is this whole war right now that people are having on social media against Sony with physical media. And a lot of people say that they're going to get a PC now. And then those freaking corporate bootlicking cocksuckers, right? They say, oh, what an idiot. What an idiotic statement. You say that you don't like Sony because they're getting rid of discs, and then you're going to get a PC to not own discs. And they don't really seem to understand that, even back when I was in high school, okay, emulation was a thing. I was playing Call of Duty, Call of Duty 2 on the computer, on an emulator, even with servers, by the way. I was playing Combat Evolved. I literally, to this day, still have, a few emulators on my flash drive from high school, okay? And I haven't been in high school in, 9 years, yeah. Haven't been in high school in 9 years, okay? And to this day, on my flash drive, I have Pokemon, I have, Super Smash Flash, I have all these games on that flash drive. I physically can just take the drive, plug it in the computer, that's it. Yet people are actually at the point where they're like, it is a good thing that I have to pay for a subscription. It is a good thing that I do not own anything. And why do they think like this? Because the corporate bastard said so. And they're not going to think anymore. Why do they think, for example, that, let's just call it a stabby stab. If you have good context and understanding, you know what it is. During everyone's favorite year, why did 85% of people take that? Because that's what they said. 15% didn't take it because they chose to think. And it really just tells me that free thinking, free thought, it's dying. It's dying more and more every year due to the fact that people are just willingly just becoming brain dead. They're so obsessed with fitting in, because listen, no matter how much of these videos that I make, okay, no matter how much videos that any kind of free thinking person makes, we are and always will be the minority. We are. Because people are not strong enough to suffer. Not anymore. They're not strong enough. They've become so weak when it comes down to suffering. Listen, if people felt what I was feeling when I basically go to work right now, and I'm not talking about my job. I'm talking about like, you know, the whole issue with my foot. The amount of pain that I feel, like they would immediately just like not go to work for like weeks and weeks and weeks on end. They just wouldn't care. You know? You know, I acknowledge that there is no one coming to save me because I am, you know, pretty much black pilled. You know, surprising. A lot of people say that I'm not because they feel like I'm too positive, but you know, I do still kind of at least, you know, side with black pillars on a lot of stuff because I do think they're right in certain things and not so much in others, but in most things, yeah. You know, I acknowledge that, hey, there is no superhero coming to save me. There is nobody coming to bail me out. You know, I can't just hook up with somebody and they just want to take care of me. That's not the world I live in. That's not the world you live in if you're like, you know, black pilled 9 out of 10. That's not the world that we live in. You know, I have no choice but to endure the agony. Every step, you know, of pain, every time I am limping out of a car, you know, every time I bump my foot and, you know, like I literally wince, I have no choice but to endure that. You know, they'll just tell you that you don't technically have to, that your health is your wealth, but no one cares about your health if you don't have wealth. So isn't that interesting? It's an oxymoron, the illusion of choice, you know? But a lot of people, when it comes down to that, they're not strong anymore. They want to fit in at all possible costs, even if it just means acting more and more like a freaking snail. You know, just no higher thought at all going on up there, just munching away on whatever slot they're feeding you. Whether it's the terrible entertainment where everything's got some goddamn agenda, or this garbage food that you're eating, for God's sakes. Like, every time you turn around, someone's either growing something in a lab or they're synthesizing some garbage or some kind of waste product that they're putting into the food, and everyone's just eating it like, this stuff is so good, it's delicious. And I'm like, do you really have to have that? You know, you're already obese, you're already unhealthy. Do you have to have it? And for them, they do, because that's how they're coping. They're coping with drugs, they're coping with food, they're coping with porn, and, you know, like, it is honestly hard to look at in certain aspects because there is no saving these people, you know? There is no saving these people. And it's not necessarily that like I see myself like a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm not a good person. I've never claimed to be a good person. If I'm anything, I'm chaotic neutral. You know, like, I just observe all this stuff. You know, if you think I'm going to be on your side, you know, like, let's not get it twisted. You know, I'm always going to read the room. If I'm on anyone's side, most of the time it's black pillars, you know. But I fully acknowledge that most black pillars are probably not even black pillars, because all it takes is a few tongue strokes on that member. And these guys out here, oh, they will throw you under the bus in the blink of an eye. I fully acknowledge that. I'm not an idiot. I may not, you know, be willing to do that, but I acknowledge others will. It's happened in the past. Tons of wars and generals completely sabotaged and destroyed their own armies. All because they was telling the wrong, you know, like a concubine, all of the details in bed. And then she went off and told. Yep. It's the truth, man. Freedom of thought, free thinking, it is just dying. And no matter how much they tell you, oh, people are waking up. No, they're not. They may wake up to like what's going on, but they take no active countermeasures. Even if you're not going to overthrow and stuff like that, they don't do anything. They just keep spending their money. They keep working themselves to death. Like, they make no countermeasures. And you see that it's not necessarily just an issue in the West. You know, like, you know, I like pop culture. I like a lot of media. I like art. I like anime and stuff like that, within reason. You know, I don't like a lot of modern anime because, you know, it kind of screams the soul of Japan right now. You know, every kind of art or media or music is the creator trying to tell you a message. Now, what that message is up to you a lot of times, but sometimes it's more obvious than anything. One of the most popular anime types right now that you're seeing in Japan is isekais. And why? Because there is a sense of massive hopelessness everywhere right now. And all people want to do is die. Literally die. And just pray that like they open their eyes and they're in a paradise. Now they're not helpless. Now they're the most powerful character in the show. And what is that? It's escapism. They can't cope with their lives. And so their only solution for them is literally just dying. You know? And how many people here eat that up? Because most people in the West, they feel the same. They feel the same. You know, they have to live through these characters because they feel like there is no countermeasures that they can take of any kind. You know? And I'm telling you guys, freedom of thought is one of the most powerful, important things that you need to develop in life. You cannot make decisions because other people feel like they are good decisions. You know, if this person feels like they need to get wasted all the time and go clubbing all the time and spend all this money, drive a certain car, and then they look in their wallet, they look in their bank account, and they don't see money, while they were advising you to do that stuff, you can look at them and decide, okay, do I want to end up like that? You really need to start evaluating the people who are trying to give you advice and go, should I take that advice? You know, like, listen, these conservatives, these wokies and stuff like that, right? You look at them. Do you want to be a conservative? Do you? You want to be one of these bastards, these hypocrites that talks about how important a book is for you? How important all these rules are, and then they're constantly breaking the rules. They don't uphold the rules, no matter how many times, like, the supposed rule, makers and the ones who uphold the law, our men in blue, break those rules. Do those conservatives get on them? Nope. They don't say a goddamn word, do they? They let them off with a free pass. So the rules can be bent by the rule makers. That's what you see with them. These wokies, they talk about how important life is and how we all need to feel. But there's never any logic. You want to be a wokie? You don't want to know who you are every 20 minutes, basically in a form of hell. You feel this like this one way. Next 20 minutes, you feel like you're something else. You're just constantly just this amorphous fluid that you don't know what you are. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be either one of them. I just want to be me. I just want to be me. And I just use the information that is widely available of observing others, looking at their state of being and going, do you want to emulate that? And I'm telling you, I don't. I don't in any capacity. I don't want to emulate that. I just recently got off the phone with my mom, and she was talking about how crazy it is that both of my sisters, have kids now and stuff like that. Even though I have like 5 sisters, but yeah, it's a complicated thing. My youngest ones have kids now. And she was saying that. Now, she wasn't saying that from the standpoint of wanting me to have kids, because I've already let her know, like, at the time that she is not going to be expecting any kids from me. Period, point blank, But I said it from the standpoint, because I mentioned this before in a previous video, and I'm probably going to mention it again, even in future videos. It's sad to me. Neither one of them has steady income, and they've already popped out a kid who's going to need resources, who's going to need medical care and all this stuff. And neither one of them has steady income. But like, these are just things that they don't care about. Like, they're just like, oh, my beautiful kid, my niece, my nephew, my granddaughter, my grandson. It's, yes, kids can be a good thing, but they need resources. And people are just pretending like your love is going to be enough for that kid. It's not. It's not enough for that kid. This world does not care about how much you love your kid, your spouse, your parent, your friend. Crap is still going to happen. Your love is not enough. But they're not going to hear that. They're just going to say, oh, you're just wrong, you're negative, and it's unfortunate. But this is kind of what I mean. Like, once you hit a certain point, when it comes down to critical thinking and free thinking, it's like you're just fully aware that you have a very limited amount of people that you can really kind of talk with. You can't talk with them. There are just topics that are just beyond them. They're mentally capped at a certain level, and I don't mean that intelligence-wise. I mean because they think in a moral sense, in a moral sense. They're blinded by morals, where they think that we can't talk about this because it feels bad. It feels wrong. It feels shady. But I am not really Well, listen, I'm willing to talk about some pretty outrageous things. I'm not going to say them what they are. I'm willing to hear them out. Even if I'm never going to, like, agree with them. I'm willing to hear them. People are not willing to even hear certain things these days. Much less so with the advent of social media, where they just find their circle and they actually say, oh, wow, look at all these people who agree with me. This must be the only correct way to think, right? No, it's not. There are a myriad of ways and perspectives that you can have and think on. But unfortunately, that is not the way that most people see it. They don't want to take from many different cultures and perspectives and try and, find some way to, like, navigate based on everyone's experience. They just say, screw it. Just going to go with this one. This has my niche. This has my clique. They've got my backs. Air quotes. Big air quotes on that. All right. It's not the case. But, yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because it's really sad to just look at how many people are just they're zombified, man. It really is. It really is. But I'm gonna go ahead and conclude it there. Wanted to say that I am going to get that what is it called? The editing software. I know I said it before, and I say it dang near every time now, but I recently had to get health insurance. Like, the pain is that bad. So, that was, let's just say, it wasn't as pleasant to spend as I would have hoped. So I'm kind of glad that I didn't buy it. So I'm not tanking too bad, but the next paycheck that hits, I'm going to do it. It's just, I have to get this thing sorted out, especially because the last thing I want is this to become chronic. But, like I mentioned before, it's not like I have a choice. I have to keep working. There is nobody coming to save me. No one is coming to save me. Hope is cope. Like, it is what it is. Your will gets stuff done. You can have hope, but you better be taking action. That you can have hope that your action will pay off. Let's just say that. But you're just hoping, there is no problem that is going to go away because you hoped it away. Period, point blank. You better take action. But I'm going to go ahead and conclude it here, boys. Thank you guys for watching. Remember that there is life beyond your pain. God bless. I'll see you next time.